I, 21 female, have an infant son with my boyfriend, 22. My family lives abroad, and they're coming over to stay and help at holiday time. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, 60s, Deborah and Bob, are helping me with household stuff and the baby. So far, we haven't had any real issues, and they've been a massive help. About 3 weeks ago, I fell down the stairs. I wasn't holding the baby, and the baby was safe. However, instead of helping me, Deborah and Bob both jumped up to comfort the baby, who was crying, and left me at the bottom of the stairs. My legs were fine, but I was wobbly because of shock, and asked one of them to help me up. After nearly 10 whole minutes of being ignored, I managed to stand up on my own and hobble through the living room. I sit down and Deborah says, "What happened to you? Are you okay?" I'll admit I saw red. I just said, "I fell down the stairs. Didn't you hear me calling you for help?" Deborah's eyes widened and she said she was too busy fussing over the baby. After an hour, my arm was swelling up and I was taken to the hospital. Luckily, it was nothing serious, and recovery time would be quick. After my boyfriend got home and his parents left, I told him I no longer wanted their help after today's events. I can manage on my own, even though it'll be hard. He was taken aback and said they've done a lot for us. I said I appreciated it all, but they ignored me crying and calling them for 10 minutes after I fell down the stairs. They don't care about me, only the baby, and I was embarrassed I didn't see it sooner. He called his parents to let them know we won't need their help anymore, and his dad said, "Is it about today? We didn't hear her." My boyfriend just told them they're invited to Sunday roast this week, and that's all. I could tell he was unhappy about my decision, but he said he went along with it because I'm the mother. Fast forward to Sunday, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were also guests. Sister-in-law has a toddler and is totally on my side, but brother-in-law is not. He told me to be grateful for his parents' support, as they're significantly more well-off than my parents are, paid for many newborn and infant expenses, and plan to pay for many more as the baby grows. Since then, Deborah keeps calling, asking if we need any help, and says she feels awful not seeing the both of you and misses the baby. Am I the idiot for not wanting them to help me in my day-to-day life? Edit. Was the baby crying loudly enough that there is a possibility they didn't hear you? No way. The baby stopped crying after 10 seconds, and the stairs were about 2 meters from the living room. There's absolutely no way they couldn't have heard me because I screamed as I fell, and me crying and shouting for help were loud. I fell at the top of the stairs and fell all the way down. This wasn't a misstep or a bum shuffle that hurt my pelvic bone. I fully fell down the stairs and cracked the banister. No way they didn't hear. The baby also started crying after the initial smack, after I hit the ground. Not the idiot. From what you described, there's no way they didn't hear you fall. They deliberately chose to ignore you lying there, possibly seriously hurt, and they're lying about it. They didn't help you until you managed to get yourself to a place where they could no longer ignore you. In turn, you cannot ignore behavior like that. You just can't. What if you'd punctured a lung or passed out from a serious concussion? What if you had died because they couldn't be bothered to investigate? You're better off without that kind of help. I'm aghast that your husband didn't rip them each a new one. I wonder if sister-in-law had similar interactions with her in-laws, which is why she agrees with OP. If the in-laws are making both OP and sister-in-law outsiders, then I could see why there's disagreement amongst the sons. If I were OP, I would talk to sister-in-law, and if they truly didn't hear you, it means they don't hear well enough to be trusted to take care of a baby. They can't be responsible for a small child. You can't hear a body falling down the stairs or an adult woman screaming and then calling for help for 10 minutes. I wouldn't trust them to water a houseplant after that. She misses the baby? That's all she misses, not the baby's incubator. Sorry you found out this way. I would be really angry that my husband only supported me because I was the mom. What if you'd broken your neck? What if you'd been dead at the bottom of the stairs while they cooed over your baby? Ask him that. Ask him if he'd be angrier if you were gone because of it. He doesn't have the appropriate level of anger. You're 100% in the right here, And your brother-in-law can shove that "you should be grateful" comment up his freaking butt. He'd shut up real fast if it happened to him. Last weekend, my wife, 30, and I, 30 male, went on a backpacking hike in the Pacific Northwest. The hike was 24 miles total, 12 in and 12 out, with the trail ending at a beautiful crystal blue lake. The trailhead was close to 3 hours from our home, so we woke up at 3:30 a.m. to be sure we'd get an early start. For those unfamiliar with overnight backpacking, the end of a hike typically has several established flat sites to pitch a tent. They're always first come, first served, and not reservable or numbered in any way. My wife and I started the hike around 7 o'clock a.m. and finished at 1:30 p.m. We were surprised that we were the first to complete the hike, but more surprised to find that there were only 4 sites scattered around the lake. For a hike this long, finding 8 or 9 sites at the end is not uncommon. Regardless, we were glad we had options and chose the first spot directly in front of the lake. We wondered what might happen as other people started to trickle in. Lo and behold, a few other groups showed up within the next hour, and the remaining sites were claimed. Around 4 p.m., a group of 4 hikers arrived at the lake. At this point, my wife and I had been well established at our site, with our tent, cooking gear, and supplies spread out. The group of 4 hiked around the lake, searching for spots, and eventually returned to our site. They stood around for a few minutes before approaching us and asking if we could move our tent to share the space with them. Given the size of our site, their tents would have been, at the most, 6 feet from ours, and our otherwise private backpacking trip would have become a shared experience with strangers. We would have been cooking food together, gathering water together, and hearing each other's conversations. Therefore, we politely declined and suggested they check for sites at the lower lake, about 1.5 miles back. Our answer clearly displeased them, and they gave us the "come on, man" routine. We again declined to share the site, so they became upset and insisted that we move our tent to make room for theirs. They said it wasn't fair, that we were capitalizing on the spot. We maintained our position, and they ultimately left the lake. My wife's and my backpacking philosophy has always been to set ourselves up for success by arriving early. The whole point of backpacking for us is to get away from social obligations and be in solitude. Are we idiots? So let me get this straight. They wanted you to disassemble your tent and move it to accommodate them? Oh dear, LOL, an idiot thing to ask strangers. But they tried their luck, and you were within your rights to say no. That would have been, as Sinatra would say, too close for comfort. 4 unvetted extra people on your site could create boundary problems for the 2 of you. You planned and prepared well for your short commune with nature. After all your effort, it would be sad to be disturbed by a crowd. Our friend had this same problem, but it was solved quickly by their extra-large boxer. All he did was growl, but that was sufficient motivation for them to leave. He's still a very good boy. You are the idiot. You mentioned that there wasn't enough space for everyone to stay, but based on the description, it appears that indeed there was enough space, but you simply positioned your tent and equipment so that other tents couldn't fit. Yes, you get to pick the spot, e.g. the flattest one, first, but you should always think about the hikers who will come after you. You don't know how long they hiked and what their circumstances are, so you should always assume someone's coming after you, and you should consider this while setting up your camp. Nature and public campsites like this are for everyone. They cannot be claimed for only one tent just because you arrived first. Me, 45 female, and my husband, 46 male, have 2 sons. The older one is 21 and in college and works a part-time job on the side. The younger one is 16 and still in high school. My husband's brother has 2 sons as well, who are 24 and 28. The older one is very nice and polite, but the younger one, let's call him Simon, has always been problematic since I can remember. He is a very picky eater, refuses to even bother engaging in a conversation unless he's interested in it, and would always be the one getting fussy if we go somewhere in a family gathering. He hardly ever addresses me, and whenever he used to come over, whether by himself or with his brother, he barely managed to greet me. If I ask him personal questions, he shuts me down easily. However, he and my husband seem to have a good friendship and even talk on the phone once or twice a week. My husband's brother works 2 jobs and wasn't always a very present father, so Simon had attached himself to my husband, even as a kid, because of availability and common interest. When he was around 5, Simon used to even say he wants to marry my husband. We all saw it was a joke and moved past it, but I found the attachment odd since then. He and my husband both like hunting, video games, and the same types of music. Even cars too, which is my husband's main hobby these days. A few months ago, Simon wanted to go on a hunting trip with his father, but was refused. So my husband offered to take him instead. I told him he should take our sons too, and Simon's brother, so it would be like a family bonding experience. He agreed, but apparently it didn't go well. My older son and Simon's brother didn't like it, and my younger son was on his phone the whole time and complained since the hunting grounds are further away and required a lot of walking. My husband told me this and said he wouldn't force anyone else to come if they didn't want to. But ever since then, he and Simon spend a lot of time together. They go hiking every other Sunday in the morning, and Simon often comes over to help my husband with the cars he's fixing up, or plays games while I'm at work. Simon only briefly greets me while oftentimes not even bothering to greet his cousins. My younger son told me he asked my husband for something, but he told him he'll do it later, and then forgot about it. It upset me because I feel like he's neglecting our sons while having no issues spending time with his nephew and always talking to him on the phone. Simon seems more like a son to him than our actual son, and it really bothers me. He claims I'm overreacting, and it's not a big deal, and that he tried to spend time with our sons, but they don't seem all that interested in doing what he likes doing. I told him they're his sons, and he should show more interest, but he claims I'm being too pushy and overbearing. Every time I bring it up with him, he gets annoyed. No idiots here. I get that you want your husband to spend more time with your sons, but if they themselves aren't really bothered to reciprocate, then how would he force it upon them? It's a two-way street, right? And it looks like your husband isn't taking an interest in what both your sons are doing, and vice versa for the sons. So it's no wonder that he's spending more time with the kid who shares his interest. You aren't an idiot for wanting him to spend more time, but don't force it on him. I disagree. OP's not the idiot. Sorry, but your husband is being an idiot to the kids you have together. He's neglected them and is still doing so. It's like Simon is his golden child when it's not even his own kid. The current state is probably from years, if not decades, of your husband spending a lot of time and favoring Simon over his own kids. That's such a rubbish thing to do. Your husband should prioritize his sons. He's doing to his younger son what his brother does to his nephew, except his son doesn't have an uncle who he could bond with. It literally doesn't matter that Simon and husband share interest. So my husband's point is that my kids don't share my interest. So why would I spend time with them? Well, because they're your kids, and you should be interested in them and their interest instead of yourself. Being around them is supposed to be the rewarding part, not getting to do a thing you like. In 10 years, Dad will be complaining that his sons never want to spend time with him. He won't even notice they're not around, as long as Simon is around. What sons? LMAO, the irony of your husband being the exact same type of parent like his brother, but then saving his nephew from his brother. Sadly, if your husband can't see this, then what are you going to do in 5, 10, 20 years? Is this how you see your life? My 40 male, ex 40 female, came out as a lesbian to me in early 2020. As you can imagine, I was gutted, and I haven't dated or had relationships at all since. I don't see the point. I haven't shared a relationship since with her, other than co-parenting my son, 18. The reason I say my son is because he's not biologically her son, as he was my son from a previous relationship that I was a single parent of until I met her. So she's been the only mom he's ever known. So I've never stood in the way of that. But since we've split, he's primarily lived with me, even though he sees her as much as he wants. He's recently started a new job, and his trainer/mentor is an ex-colleague of mine. I'll call her Eve, 39, female. Eve was a good mate of mine at work for 3 of the last 4 years. In fact, I would say my bestie, really. When she left, I hadn't spoken to her. My son always talks about how much Eve talks about me, asks about me, and teases me about how he thinks she has a crush on me. I usually just laugh it off. The other day, though, he was excited when he came home from work. Basically, he's been invited to his work party, and everyone's allowed to take a +1, so he's taking his girlfriend. He then said Eve doesn't have anyone to take, and that she'd love me to be her +1 and take me. I just laughed as I always do and said something like, "Yeah, imagine that." He seemed really quiet after that, so I asked him what was up. He said, "I love you, Dad, but I don't understand you. You're letting your life go by, and all you do is just sit home and play games on your PC, and don't do anything or see anyone other than me, or have friends. You need to start getting out and enjoying life more. Otherwise, you'll be a lonely old man." I basically told him to shut up and mind his own business, and I won't take life advice from an 18-year-old. He just got up and walked out and said he was going to go stay with his mom. Not long after, my ex rings me, saying he's upset. I told her I should be upset after the way he spoke to me. But then she hits me with the old cliche, "We're all family. They're just worried about me." I told her it was ironic because she wasn't worried about me when she decided she was finally a lesbian and wasted 11 years of my life. She called me names and hung up. I messaged my son to tell him to come home, and he told me he heard our argument and my ex was crying, and he didn't want to come home until I apologized. I told him it wasn't happening, and I didn't have anything to apologize for. I vented to my mom yesterday about it, who usually has my back throughout everything, and she said he has a point, because she thinks I should move on too and get a nice girlfriend, and that I'd make someone very happy. And she's not said that to me at all since my split. So now here I am venting to complete strangers. LOL. Am I the idiot for not apologizing? Edit. It's not the fact that my ex is happy, but it's how much people cheer her on. Like all her flaunting how happy she is on social media and how she's now able to be herself, and the hundreds of likes and "you deserve to be happy, hon" comments that she gets, or all the support she gets. Do you know how many people support me? None. People want me to be happy because being sad inconveniences everyone and annoys them. No one cares that I've been used and been someone's beard. You are the idiot for lashing out at your son when he only wanted to help you. Your son gave you good advice out of concern and love, and you crap on him for it. What you told your ex-wife was entirely justified, though. But seriously, man, you're 40, not 90. You still have a life to live. Move on and be happy and successful. Maybe you'll get back at your wife if she sees that you're better than ever without her. Have you ever heard the saying, "Living well is the best revenge"? You have a strange way of proving yourself right. Listen to yourself. You don't want to be happy because she told you you would be happier without her. So you're proving her wrong by staying unhappy. Do you understand how crazy that sounds? You're throwing your life away to prove a point. Honestly, maybe I do. My whole life, even before my son, has been one of keeping everyone happy and keeping the peace so I don't upset someone else. Dating Eve benefits everyone other than me. Eve because she gets a date with me no matter what my thoughts are. My son because he doesn't have to worry about me anymore. And my ex because she gets to abandon her guilt about leaving me. Yeah, I don't think you should date Eve, but mostly because I don't think she deserves to be saddled with you. She gets to date me no matter my thoughts? You're not a prize here, mate. Far from it, with your self-pitying comments. Seriously, get therapy.